They know about Jesus Christ, Cardinal Di Franco asked, leaning forward in his armchair, the scarlet of his cassock shone against the royal blue leather of his seat. Well, the closest approximation would be the Saviour. They don't have a name for him, exactly, Father Pembe explained, an awkward smile on his face. He was the only person in the room standing, and though very much interested in communications, his interest extended almost exclusively to the scientific study of them, not public speaking. Bishop Huang was sitting in an armchair of his own, vehemently shaking his head. We, humans, are God's chosen people. One would expect to find the concept of a savior in primitive extraterrestrial religions. Hell, we have investigated such faiths before. This is different, Father Pembe insisted. The parallels go much further. He opened the next slide in his presentation. It was a picture of a village situated on the cusp of a snowed-in Sierra and a wide, almost glowing yellow plain. The round huts were built of gold-tinted mud bricks, decked with roofs that were cones of giant, colourful tail feathers. The xenozoologists were calling the animal they came from peacock mammoth, though that did not quite capture the sheer size of the creature the inhabitants of this plain hunted. The next slide was a large building at the centre of town, an oval with painted walls and a carved lattice of bones covered with a weave of smaller feathers as its roof. There, at the top of it, was what could only be described as a cross. Everything in this sculpture is round. They have 360-degree vision. They understand round shapes better than anything. All of the art and architecture is smooth, streamlined, really. Only the cross has right angles. This is most definitely a Christian church. He waved that picture away, and one of a small crowd in front of the church doors appeared. Two of the people were humans, Father Layman and himself, both wearing filtration masks to protect themselves from the sulfuric air. The others were aliens. Like humans, they were bipedal, with straight spines, or rather 3 thin spines instead of a single thick one, hands with opposable thumbs, or rather 2 double-jointed thumbs per hand, a mouth, or rather more, and a powerful brain, or rather a sphere split into 4 even parts in their skull. On their skin they had yellow plates of thick cartilage, which became smaller and thinner at the head, where they gained various shades of indigo and blue. One of the aliens, taller than the others, had a chain around his neck. Is that? Cardinal Di Franco leaned forward in his chair again. Father Pembe nodded. It's a rosary. There can be no doubt about it. It's made of bone, not wood, but that's mostly because there's no equivalent to trees in this region. But that's not all, he added with a glance at the skeptical face of the bishop. The next slide was of the church interior, illuminated by the sunlight shining through the feathers in the roof. In the middle, there was a circular altar, above which a cross hung suspended from the roof. It featured a rather detailed depiction of a member of the alien species nailed to it. Incredible! Cardinal Di Franco poured himself a glass of water. He was beyond awe. Incredible is exactly what this is, Huang commented. Tell me precisely when did their savior visit these people? From what we've been able to tell, and mind you, they have a very different system of timekeeping, it should have been around 100 years ago. One of the town elders claims to have seen him as a youngster. They have the 10 Commandments, which translate to exactly our 10 Commandments in the right order. They have original sin, they have the story of the garden. It's a bit different, of course, not a garden at all, but rather a park of fountains, and the fruit was water from a particular watering hole. Their version of Eve was talked into it by what amounts to a snake. A video of a creature appeared. Straight as an arrow, it was sliding down one of the icy mountain slopes before launching itself into the air and grabbing hold of an airborne critter. It then extended a parachute-like skin flap and sunk softly down to the plain below, devouring its meal. It has no extremities and it's quite opportunistic. If one accepts non-literal interpretations of the Bible, these are the same concepts expressed in ways different species might understand them. Are there any differences in our faiths? Asked the cardinal. Yes, mostly deviations and alternative interpretations of similar concepts that would serve them better in their living conditions. Obviously, most of the stories in history do not exist, and they have no Bible, nor a church as an organization, but these things emerged centuries after Jesus Christ lived on earth. So if we are going by the century theory, one might say that they're still on schedule. But there is one major difference that has struck us in particular. Pembe took a deep breath. They have known about alien civilizations because the Saviour told them. He said he's visited many of them before, and that he would ascend back to the heavens to visit countless more. How convenient that they come with a theological justification for your nonsense, Father Pembe, Bishop Huang said, his voice thick with contempt. I suppose they also knew you would come visit them one day. They do speak of a return of the Saviour, as do we, but I do not believe myself to be that, said Pembe, slightly intimidated by Huang. All of this was true. He had invented none of it. The problem is that, the way the biologists see it, these aliens will never become a world-spanning species. They're too specialized on their comparatively small plains region, and have no intention of living into environments they are not adapted for. To be honest, they appear to be quite the anomaly in more than one way. Cardinal DiFranco sighed, then hit a button on his armrest. The window of the briefing room cleared a little, revealing the alien world beneath, packed in its yellow-tinged nitrogen-oxygen atmosphere. The part of the single megacontinent on its surface they could see from this angle looked a little bit like a crucifix, Pembe thought. There is something you need to know, and it cannot leave this room. The Cardinal looked at both of them intently. The reason why the Holy See financed a scientific expedition to this particular alien world happened on the Pope's behest. His Holiness spoke to me of a vision he had involving a group of people with yellow cartilage talking to a dark-skinned priest. He compiled the list of every single expedition member himself, because God the Father gave it to him. He believes that we must elevate this species so it may join our galactic community of the Catholic Church. Bishop Huang laughed. I see what's happening here. You two are trying to establish for yourselves a little cargo cult at the expense of the Holy See. We all know His High Holiness won't live to see the coming decade, so why not increase one's chances of being elected his successor, Cardinal? He slapped the side of his armchair. You two thought that having me on the mission might increase your chances of being believed back home. People know I don't believe aliens can be saved. Maybe I would have disappeared on the way back to make sure I couldn't change my mind. He rose, straightening his robes. That's not going to happen. I'll be taking the express shuttle home, thank you very much. With these words, Bishop Huang Qinghan left the briefing room. 16 years later, he would inherit the Holy See and become the new Pope, Pope Titus III, and purge the Roman Catholic Church of those who would accept extraterrestrials into their congregations. Meanwhile, Father Pembe would become Pope Martin XI only a few years later. He was the first Pope of the Catholic Church of the Stellar Peoples, whose heavenly halls would be a space station in geosynchronous orbit. Cardinal DiFranco would be known as Saint Alessandro, patron saint of alien worshippers, open-mindedness, and humility. It was not the first split in papal lines, and it would not be the last, but many hold that it was the most significant.